And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Claire Mataira, who is currently with us from Peru, next to the Amazon River. At age 14, she was contacted by a being from Lemuria, which eventually caused her to open a vortex to where souls were trapped. Much later, after being freed, these souls paid her a visit, which she has a photograph of, we'll see today, and more. Claire, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm delighted.
So let's start at age 14 and tell us first about how this being contacted you.
Yeah, it was a funny time. I was the oldest of 7, so life was really extremely busy. And I went through this a time which is almost a bit like a nervous breakdown. At least that's what the doctor said later on. And I was given a sleeping cure after that. It's very strange, but I woke up one day. I woke up one day and there was like something was sitting on my chest and I could hardly breathe. And so I freaked out. It was in the morning, and my parents eventually got the doctor who gave me this sleeping cure, where I was sort of out of not very conscious for about 2 weeks. Yeah. And then after that, I was given some time to go to my grandmother, which was really nice for me. I went there. She had a big garden and a beautiful house, and she had a lot of books about spirituality and about art. And I was always very interested in drawing, so I made this drawing of the burghers of Calais. You can see that drawing there, which is a very sad drawing of a man who is almost starving, and he lost the war. They lost the war from France, lost the war to England, and they came and the people had starved themselves because they were in a big siege. And then a little bit later, I was given this drawing. So I did that when I was 14. Sorry, the wind is blowing it a little bit. So that's the drawing that I made after that. And I was told that these two were relating to each other. And that was, at the time, I didn't know it was from Lemuria. I didn't know at all what it was. But that spirit started talking to me on a regular basis when I went to bed or something. That I would talk to him and he would talk to me and make me feel good. And then after a while, it just went away, and I kind of got old enough to get on with my normal life and have my children.
Let me stop you for one moment.
Yeah?
So you're
Sure.
saying that the picture of the one on the bottom half of the page that kind of looks like an American Indian, that is
Yes.
the being from Lemuria.
Yes, that's what I decided after a while, because at that time I didn't know it was from Lemuria, of course.
Mm-hmm. And so
Yes.
he contacted you. What did he tell you?
Well, he told me that they had been through a war and that it was very difficult, and not much more at the time, because he kept saying that he was the same as those burghers of Calais, which was the picture that I showed you before.
Did he tell you why he was contacting you?
Well, at 14, I didn't really understand any of it. I was just kind of like wondering what, becoming a woman, and I didn't really know anything very much. It was a very busy life with 7 children. We were all born within 11 years, so there was always so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go to school a lot and bicycle a lot to go to school. So the days were really full. I have a big interest in art, and when I had this experience, I took off about 6 months of school or something like that. So I missed a whole year.
So how did your life change after that?
Yeah, it was pretty impactful. And then after that, I started drawing spirits. I actually have other drawings of spirits, but they were not that one. That one was the one that seemed to be most important. And my mother kept it somehow. And I found the drawing about 40 years later, close to 40 years later.
So that one event happened. And then I'm assuming that your life went back to kind of a normal life.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
And then what was your next spiritual event that happened?
Well, the next one was that I found out about my master, Maha Baba, which was a very powerful experience for me. And that had to do with, at that time I was at the art school in Australia, so I had moved from Holland to Australia. And And there I was with a group of people. We were using marijuana and different things, you know. And so then when I found out about my master, I stopped doing all that. So I didn't have any more, nothing of any description, no more drugs, nothing.
Can you tell us a little bit about who Maha Baba is?
Maha Baba was born in 1894, I think. And he was lived in India. I just want to get the drawing out because we did this work, we pulled all the drawings out. Here we are. So Maha Baba is a spiritual master. So we're having problems with the wind here. I'm really sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
The man has actually stopped talking. So yeah, this is the drawing. Mm-hmm. And I think I posted it to you in an email, actually. Mm-hmm. So Maha Baba lived in India. He traveled around also. He was silent for about 44 years. There's a big story about it online, Maha Baba. So that's online. You can find out about it. He has quite a few followers. And he said that the one word of God, the one ancient one, had incarnated again and again, like he was Zoroaster, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and now he was Maha Baba. That was his claim. Yes. And of course, I was brought up to Roman Catholic, so I was very stuck with Jesus. My grandmother had a very strong Catholic feeling, and I loved her, and I would spend a lot of time with her when I could. And so I started making drawings of Jesus. I found it very difficult to make pictures of Jesus because I didn't have a good photo of it. And I worked with the shroud sometime later. But yeah, I made a YouTube story about that, about Jesus and Maha Baba. And at the time, I felt that Maha Baba was a strong energy for me. I kind of felt I recognized him as being one of the masters. So he sort of gave me a really powerful dream where he landed in my heart, and I was completely winded and I couldn't breathe anymore for about 5 minutes. So I thought I was going to die. So that was, yeah, he took my hands in the dream and threw me up in the air. And when he took my hands, he said, "I'm going to turn your life inside out and upside down." And then he threw me up in the air and I somersaulted and I fell on my back. And then he came after me because he still held my hands, and it fell in my heart. And he came in my heart so powerfully that I couldn't breathe for about 5 minutes. I woke up like that. I couldn't breathe. And then I thought, wow, that was a powerful dream. Much more powerful than normal dreams. And then after that, I felt that he had come in my heart, but I had to kind of make my mind check him out completely. I had already read the Bible a little bit, and I studied the Bible again. And I also read his books. So I spent a few years completely studying it so that I would satisfy my mind that I wasn't off on some crazy track. And Maha Baba's been with me all that time, so it's now nearly 50 years that I've been with Maha Baba. But it hasn't taken away Jesus for me.
From what I understood, Maha Baba is the reincarnation of Jesus, right?
In some way, yes. Like another manifestation of that same divine soul.
Do you feel that dream with Maha Baba was an actual visitation or just a dream?
It had to be a visitation. I wouldn't have had that impact of not being able to breathe for 5 minutes. It was quite a shocker.
And he's been visiting with you ever since in dreams?
Yeah, he's been there, and I have been having on and off dreams, but not. I've just tried to ask him to be my guide, and I followed his guidance, and it's always worked out pretty good. Like he's taken me through many really unusual situations without any trouble, and I've been here. I had to live here without a pension and without any help. I've had some friends who have given me a bit of support, really. Lots of thanks to them. But in general, Baba's made it possible for me to always have some work, always have some money to be able to help people here. So I've helped a lot of people with ayahuasca work, which I've done for the last 16 years. And and also with card readings, helping them to break free from their shackles, from their problems from the past.
Let's fast forward your life now to the point where you opened up this vortex.
Yeah, I was still in Australia, and the spirit started visiting me again. That spirit of, I call him Nogastek, the Indian type. And he, yeah, I made another drawing of him, which was more recent. Like I made that at the time that I was in Australia. So here is a drawing of him, and that is also the man that he walked into. He walked into a man in Peru. So that was what I was told. I was told he would help me. I had to help him to free the spirits. He came back to me very strongly, and I started writing diary at the time. And in the diary, I started to write with my left hand and my right hand. And so my right hand was doing the left brain, and the left hand was doing the right brain. So I was answering questions, and he was answering with the left hand. So it was more intuitive. And he was telling me that they had been in this war, and that he was the same one that had come to me at 14 years old, and that he was wanting me to clear this vortex of the spirits that they had all been trapped in, and it was partly his fault. And he felt very sorry about it, and he wanted me to do that job. So I didn't know how to do it, and I was told that I would be taken out to the vortex, and I asked for Archangel Michael to help me. And so after a while of preparing all this with all signs, oh yeah, a very important thing that happened was that I had painted a landscape. And that landscape, I didn't know where it was, but then I was shown through him where it was on the map. And then I entered those points into the satellite maps, called up satellite maps. This was about 20 years ago, almost. And then in the satellite maps that I had entered into, came up 5 photos, and one of them was what I had painted. So I knew that was a real sign that I was not just getting lots of bullshit. Like I was worried about that, that I was just being taken along for a ride. But that was actually a tangible point where I was shown a place that I had already been painting, and that place was in Paraguay. And that's where I was taken in the spirit to clear this vortex and take the spirits out.
Can you describe what the vortex looked like?
Well, I didn't really look into it. Like these one here under my finger here. Mm-hmm. Those are the spirits that came from that vortex area to introduce me to the work I had to do. And that is Archangel Michael there. He is opening up the vortex with his staff, and I'm standing next to him as a very small person. And then actually here, I think one of these, he's taking the spirits out, and then I fall back into my body there. And this is from actually Peru. Oh, that's from Bolivia. So that's Archangel Michael was with me then too. So I had to kind of take these spirits out, and he helped me to do it. He took them all to the central sun, he said, where they were going to be recycled. And then I fell out of that place and into my body, and I was very, very sick, and I went to emergency care in the hospital in Australia. I was there for 10 days, hooked up on all sorts of drips and drabs, and that was because I had all sorts of weird infections in me, and I felt it had to do with that sorcery, what was put onto the Lemurian place where they couldn't get out. And then while I was in the hospital, I saw on the television that suddenly all the native people in Bolivia had voted for their own native leader, which they hadn't done since the colonial people came over and took charge of Bolivia. So they started to get their own government back, and most of the native people had come out to vote, and I felt that had to do with those spirits that had come out, and they made these people vote for their own leaders. So that was very shocking to me. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Honestly, I had no clue what was going on. But these things were given to me, and reaffirming what was going on with me.
Did you have any conversation with Archangel Michael?
Yes, lots of Archangel Michael conversations, and I made a really big picture of him too. And when I did that, I became very overwhelmed. It was like this golden light started bathing over me, and I couldn't even stand up anymore. I was painting on a big easel, but I had to lie down on the ground, and his beautiful golden light just came washing over me. And that was in the time that I was starting to get the message that I had to go to Bolivia and Peru. And that was something I was pretty afraid of. I had my husband and my children living there, and even though they were old now, they were getting older and leaving home, but it would be a humongous change for me.
Was it Archangel Michael that was telling you to move to Bolivia and Peru?
Not really. Archangel Michael was sort of like protecting the whole thing. He was kind of standing by to help me to do what I was asked to do. I was told that I had part of my destiny was to do this, and that I had to learn about shamanism, and that I did a lot of looking into the I Ching to find out what was going on. And it kept saying that I had to help clear up problems with drugs and sorcery in South America. And that's what I ended up doing. Yes, I took several people off the drugs. And also it was like, with the changes that were going to come up on the world, where we're going from the dark age to the age of light, we had to get people who were helping these energies to come in, and they were like a buffer, so that the people who were not ready to receive all that energy, they were getting help from us. And it was a whole huge network of star seeds and people who were all moved around to the different places where they had to be. Only the unfortunate thing was that the people who did this job often ended up being a bit out of their own region, so they ended up being a bit lonely. But always being helped by the angels, which is very amazing.
Was Lemuria located in South America?
Yes, definitely. I felt it was. I also saw a book from Edgar Cayce where he was saying that first it was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and then when the waters were rising, they were going towards Australia, New Zealand, some of the islands there, Hawaii and different places. So it was like they're going out to all these different areas. And then they also went to South America. That's what I understand. Because the drawing that I made, the painting that I made, that ended up being also a satellite photo. Let me show it to you here. This is the painting is below, yeah, and that is the satellite photo which I adjusted to it. It has about 9 points of reference where they all coincide. So that was in Paraguay, and it seemed that was a place also where the Lemurians were. I can't prove anything except from these drawings and pictures, coincidences.
Now, if we fast forward in time again, these beings that were freed from the vortex paid you a visit. Can you tell us about that story?
Yes. I was already in South America, and I had been living with a Peruvian friend, and he was starting to take photos, and the apparent orbs were starting to come up everywhere on our photos, just everywhere. And then one morning I was woken up in 2009, very early, and I felt that they were out there and they wanted me to come outside. And I took about 100 of these photos with, see that? Is that clear enough?
Yes, that's a lot of orbs.
Yeah, I took about 100 of those photos, all with myself, but some of them are better than others. So, yeah, and here's another one which is pretty amazing. Here is my friend who was channeling the Indian man for a while, and here is a whole bunch of Dios, the wind.
That's all right.
We're not having an easy time. Yeah, this is a collection of orbs that were there. Yeah.
Interesting how some of them are kind of elongated. They're not really circular.
Yeah, I don't think they're all the same type. I think that some of them were were spirit beings, like people who had been people. And the other ones, the elongated ones with the colors on them, I think they are nature spirits and different shamanic spirits. So they all came like a big fashion show of spirits with colors and feathers and tails.
Could you say that they were possibly like fairies?
Yeah, I think they may have been fairy-like, yes. And also, some of them made me think of Walt Disney stories, which, Walt Disney's getting a bit of a bad rap at the moment, but I do think that originally these were good shamanic stories. I don't know if you can see the one this one here, the one in the corner, the little tiny one. That to me looks like Jumbo the flying elephant. And I had several Mickey Mouse spirits, which I haven't got a photo of here. But they had all the round ears and they had a tail, and that was Minnie Mouse too, which was in lilac blue.
When you were at this massive orb party, did any of them communicate with you?
Yeah, it was interesting because it's like they kind of very softly went around my cheeks and stuff. And they said, thank you for the work you've done to get us out. And they said they were going to reincarnate. But I didn't get any more specific messages. They were just sort of saying, thank you.
So where do you think you are now on your spiritual journey?
Well, I feel that a lot of that work has been done. I think the person walked into his friend and has a life on the physical life now. So he was actually coming to me in the form of different native guys who were kind of channeling him or had a possession of him or were piggybacking on him. And then he eventually had to go into a body as a walk-in, which is what he did in 2009, but I wasn't made aware of it for a little while. And then he contacted me and we ended up having a long conversation. I met him in 2014. And then I felt like peace. It was like, it's done. It's done. He's on his way. I don't have to carry this anymore. It's finished. And from that time, I've sort of been here on my own in working with people with traumas who come for ayahuasca work. And that's been very, very interesting. And there's a lot of stories that I'm doing some writing about it. I hope that I can eventually publish it. I published the Marine Vortex on Amazon, but there's a lot more writings that I have made that are not published. So it's been very interesting, yes.
Would you classify yourself as an ayahuasca facilitator?
Well, we call them ayahuasqueros, and I've studied for 2 years with the medicine man on and off, and a lot of it had to do with, it was interesting because I felt that once I started drinking, I ended up feeling that I could just open a door in my past where I had already been working with this medicine, and I had already been a shaman, but I had been a man. So it was funny because sometimes people said when I was leading a ceremony that I became a man, and I did feel that myself too. But it was like it was already another life that I just clicked into, and so I didn't have to struggle. And it was a bit of a struggle anyway. You've always got to be very careful of what you're doing with people because it's very important to them, and it's very profound for them. So it's a lot of responsibility, and certainly not something to just be flippant about. You have to work with these plant spirits. You have to basically marry them, kind of like marry them. You have to be very dedicated to them to be able to work with them, with other people. And you have to have a dieta. You can't eat certain things. You have to always be in that space where you can hold it so that people can feel safe with you, with the medicine.
Are you able to create the medicine yourself?
Yeah, we've grown it here in my garden, and I had it growing everywhere, and I've just been cooking it up myself. We've been cooking it up here with my workers. I've got native workers that have been very helpful people, beautiful souls, very faithful to me. Been very lucky with that. Yes.
Have you ever had a near-death experiencer come down there and want to have an ayahuasca ceremony with you?
There's a lot of all sorts of people, especially that I had women with trauma from sexual problems that they had when they were young. So they ended up getting rid of that. And I had several walk-ins that were lost. They didn't know what they were doing here. So it was helpful for them to do that. And yeah, a lot of people had abortions which were not cleared from their aura, from their psyche, so that the spirit would still be with them. And sometimes that was good and sometimes it was not good. So that was something that we looked at. A lot of tracking the spirit life of these people. Sometimes they had grandparents that were beautiful guiding souls, like guardian angels, and sometimes they had grandparents that were trying to still control them from beyond the grave.
What are some of the misconceptions that people have about ayahuasca?
I think that people think that it is just a kind of a chemical medicine, but it's not. It's actually, for me, not anyway. Having worked with it, and I drank ayahuasca more than 1,000 times. At the moment, I can't drink it anymore because it's sort of in my bones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a spirit, and you really have to connect to the spirit world. It's a spirit that shows you that we are all connected. That's a big message that you've probably heard from a lot of people who've taken ayahuasca, that we're all connected. Whatever we do, it has an effect. We have to be very loving and careful to be able to go to the next level in this place. Otherwise, we're going to repeat our experiences until we learn that lesson, to be thoughtful and to realize that you can't just do something to somebody else and it's not going to have an effect for you. You know, it's all very connected. And also the plants. We are all connected to the plants. Whatever we do to Mother Nature, it has a type of karma that we have to work through. And I'm very sorry to see that even in Peru, a lot of people are very careless about their environment. They throw a lot of rubbish everywhere. Petroleum mining is there, but you know, you're not allowed to say anything about that, it's okay. I think it gives a lot of people work, but sometimes there are big spills and it's a problem. It's not a chemical.
Right.
It is a spirit being.
So you're saying that it's not a chemical, it's actually alive.
Yeah, and it's a spirit that is connected to the plant, maybe not actually in the plant all the time, but you can access that plant on another level when you drink the medicine. And it's often shown as a snake or a jaguar or different things. Sometimes I've seen it as a stick person, different faces.
Earlier you mentioned we're moving from dark to light. Does that have anything to do? Does that have anything to do with Kali Yoga?
Yes. The Kali Yoga is supposed to be the dark age where we were suffering for a long time. And the benefit of suffering, Maha Baba explained that. He said that it's to do that people who suffer, they look for the light more intensely. So they really have more advantage to get more towards God realization or to liberate themselves through suffering. I think it's because when we're suffering, if we don't become bitter about it, we actually realize that this is a dream and that we have to think about how we approach it with our mind so that we don't get stuck in it, you know. So we start to lift ourselves to a higher level and frequency. And that's the benefit of it. So it doesn't affect us so much.
If I go back for a moment to ayahuasca, what is the biggest transformation that you've ever seen in somebody?
There's so many cases. I find it really hard to pin one especially, you know. Many people who have did not have any confidence in themselves, who and many of the, especially women who had been as a child, they had to they found it extremely difficult to have normal relationships in their present life, and they found it also difficult to have confidence in themselves that they can do anything. They were very stuck in their victim thing. So the ayahuasca was helping them to throw out the trauma. So they would vomit it out, or they would go to the toilet and throw it out, crying. I would have to support them in that and be there like a sort of a rock in the storm, so that they feel safe to allow that to come out. Ayahuasca seems to gather all this stuff that is somehow being locked into our own cellular system. It takes a while, like a few hours, for ayahuasca to really collect up all these energies that we have stuck into our system. And then we start feeling sick and want to vomit or go to the toilet. And then after that, a great release is felt. And then people start to feel like, oh, now I don't have to be addicted to this because I don't have to feel so bad about my life, or I don't have to feel that this person ruined my whole life. I can start moving forward for myself. So that has happened on a regular basis. And people have gone and opened centers after that and have started yoga groups and have written books. And so all sorts of things they've started doing, which was sometimes they told me later on, a couple of years later, they give me an email and say, you were right, it was really great. And now I'm doing this and I feel so much better about my life. But, when you've been feeling like a victim for 40 years, you can't just snap your fingers and be done with it, So you'd have to start retraining your mind to be thinking more positively, to behaving more positively, and to respect people around you. So you can't be in a negative space. And that is something you have to practice. So apart from the insight, ayahuasca can give the insight, but then you have to practice, and that is up to you to practice it.
Can you tell us about your own personal transformation after taking it over 1,000 times?
Well, the transformation happened before, when I was still in the early stages. I had a feeling that, I'm just trying to remember. Yes, I was in a group, a very large group of about 30 people, and they had about 5 different shamans, and they were Shipibos. Most of them were women, but a couple were men. And I was allowed to drink with them because I came in as a translator because I had to learn Spanish and English and stuff like that. So I was pretty good at that. And I was coming there as a translator. But they allowed me to drink with the first session. And I drank, and they gave me too much ayahuasca because I'm extremely sensitive. And then I started to feel that this was a transformation that I had been waiting for incarnations. And that, I started to really completely lose it. I was just struggling. I asked someone to help me, but they said they never felt someone beat their heart so fast. And they called the shaman over, and they started to sing over me and hold my hands. They sang over me, and as it was going on, they had to change shamans. All of the shamans had to sing for me, one after the other. In that time, I felt my head was taken off, and I was being told that there was a star that had to be lowered back into my body so I could do the work properly. Sorry. And I could see the star, and my old self was standing there saying, oh, this is such a disturbance to the group. They're going to be really mad with me. Can't we stop this? And then there was another Buddha person behind that said, everything's perfect. This is just the right thing. And I just was kind of had to completely surrender myself. And one of the males held me in his arms while I was leaning because I was kind of like, I couldn't even sit up properly. So they were holding me up, and then the women were singing, holding my hands and singing and singing. So, and that singing actually helped the energies to open up. This is like making the operation as smooth as possible. So that was how the spirit of this star being could be lowered back into my body, which I felt it was part of me, or it was like the mother of me, somehow a part of me. But my body was not ready to handle that kind of voltage that this person was carrying. So it had to be inserted into me so I would learn how to handle that kind of voltage of transfer. And so that's what happened over several hours. And all the other people had to kind of go out and have a smoke or sit around and try and help me. It was very embarrassing. They tried to stop me and pull me out into the one of the cabins so they could have their own ceremony, the leaders of the group. But the shamans wouldn't allow it. They said, no, she's not allowed to go anywhere. We have to finish this. And the whole group of shamans was with me to do this. So, and I know that if they had done that, I probably would have gone mad, and that would have been the end of that. So they allowed me to go through this whole thing until the whole fiery spirit was completely entered in my heart. And then slowly it was starting to close up. And then they allowed me to rest. You know, I was getting so hot, they had to pour water over my head the whole time, so everything got extremely wet. And in the end, I had to kind of put on a sheet and sit with the shamans. They asked me to sing. They said, if you sing, it'll help you to integrate. So I started singing, and all sorts of sounds came out of me. And this is what I am. My cat is wanting to sit on my stuff. Yeah, so that when I was singing, it was helping me a lot to manage the energies as well. And this is what happened to finish the whole thing. In the end, there were a few people that were helping me. I asked them to just hold their hand over my heart area so that because I felt there was like a gaping wound with a fire inside it. So they closed it up. And after that, I was not allowed to drink with them ever again. I understand. But it wouldn't have happened again anyway. But the Shibibas loved me, and they said, come back and sit in the ceremony, because when you come in, the devils will go. And but I said, no, they don't want me there, so I'll just sit there a bit further away. And then I had no smell for about 9 months. It took about 9 months to fully process that experience.
You mentioned that you might have gone mad, and some people do have negative experiences with ayahuasca. Why is that?
Yes, well, it's because there is a whole process that has to be taken care of. So you have to do your dieta, and you have to have a shaman who sees you all the way through. So, which is what they wanted to do then. Those shamans were all completely dedicated to seeing me all the way through, and which is why I became out quite normal, more or less normal. But I don't have any problems with craziness at all. I'm just very peaceful. And I think that with some people, that is what they have to do. They have to finish their dieta. If they get upset about something and they run away, or they do something like break their dieta, that can have bad effect. It's like you have a relationship with some kind of fairy person, and then you just run away and they get mad with you. That's a very simple explanation.
Let me stop you for one moment. You're saying if you break your dieta or theata, what is that?
Well, a dieta is kind of like it's a bit of a contract with the spirit world where you're going to eat only certain things. So you're kind of for 2 weeks before the ayahuasca and 2 weeks after, you just stick to this dieta, which basically eliminates sugar, salt, fried foods, very cold things like ice cream or anything. Well, ice cream is completely out because it's very sugary and it's fatty and it's also cold. So gaseosa drinks, any of those things, you can't take any of it. You can't have picantes, so no meat. Well, you can have fish, you can have chicken. So white meat is okay. And you just spend a quiet time, no drugs, no sex. So it's all the time of kind of meditation and peaceful, focusing on what you're there for to do. But it's a spiritual journey. It's not just, oh, let's do ayahuasca and have a party, you know. That's maybe some people do that, but I don't think it's very helpful. It's like it's not having the best effect for ayahuasca. You spend so much money making a trip or taking the ayahuasca ceremonies, and then you end up abusing it by doing all sorts of other wrong things, and then you know what you're doing that for. So it's like you just toss it all in the rubbish bin.
Didn't you earlier show me a drawing of ayahuasca?
Yes, when I went through this process of the shaman spirit that asked me to clean up the vortex, I also started painting. First I started painting the landscape, but then also I painted this, and I didn't know what it was. I was pretty annoyed. It's like a plant. I said, it's a plant. It has no flowers. It has no fruit. I cannot see what it is. It just has an eye in the middle. So I made that painting, and also before that, I had several times that I said to my friend, I'm looking for something that is sticky and bitter, and I can't find it in the fridge and I can't buy it in the shop. It's a sort of a tonic and I don't know what it is. And only later on I realized that that was ayahuasca. So ayahuasca spirit was already reaching out to me, even though I didn't know what it was and I didn't know the name of it. Only when I went to South America, looking for these spirit contacts of my Lemurian people, I ended up being shown and introduced to ayahuasca ceremonies, and that was the first time I heard of it. And then slowly I realized that ayahuasca had already been calling me. So I think that ayahuasca also called me to be working with her here.
Is there one plant called ayahuasca, or is ayahuasca a combination of plants?
The actual brew is a combination of plants. And I have several videos on my YouTube where I explain something about ayahuasca, also about cooking it. But I have the ayahuasca itself is actually a vine that crawls up on trees and stuff. So it's a thing of shade and darkness. It is not really a plant that grows in full sunlight. It grows under trees in the jungle, where it comes quite naturally. You can see it in the jungle here. And then we mix it with chacruna. Chacruna is the one that actually gives you the visions. It gives the brightness. It stimulates the third eye. And chacruna, I think, gets boiled up into DMT, which people smoke or something like that, which I've never done because I think that it's nicer to have work just with the plants rather than have these really high concentrated things. Because if you look at working with coca leaves, for instance, which is also one of the medicine plants here in South America, then making it into cocaine is a bit of an evil thing, isn't it, for me anyway? So it's not the natural way, you know, like people here, they chew the coca leaf and then you can get a certain level of coca connection, but to make it into cocaine is another story. And ayahuasca, we don't get ayahuasca in that concentrated form, even though when you cook it, you have to really boil it down to get a proper effect. So it ends up being boiled down into a bit of a syrup. And we put also a little bit of mapacho tobacco, which is a natural tobacco. But when you work just with pure tobacco, which they also have, you actually can, there have been accidents with pure tobacco. So it's very important with pure tobacco that you vomit because you can have nicotine poisoning. And some people have died from that. So it's not a joke, you know. So when we put mapacho in ayahuasca, it's just to keep people alert, to give that little zing, to give a bit of alertness. It is not actually to give you a tobacco hit or anything like that. It's just a very small amount that gets put into this huge pot of ayahuasca brew. So these things are dangerous in the wrong hands, I feel. Most of the native shamans here in South America, they basically dedicate themselves to one plant. So while some of these retreat centers, they actually put people in a very short time through a whole lot of plants, which they are not necessarily ready for. And so that's why it's very important to debrief properly and to do your full dieta. So it's like people from the West want everything fast, you know, and here everything goes slow because the plants are slow. It's a process. Everything is a process here. So we've got mapacheros. They are the people that work with tobacco. We have huachuneros. That's the people that work with San Pedro. We have ayahuasqueros. They're people that just work with ayahuasca. We have all sorts of different people that work with different plants, and that is the curanderos work with other plants. So the curanderos are not ayahuasqueros, but sometimes they can be called curanderos because it's something people who heal with plants. So there's a whole lot of yeah, and then of course the sapo, the frog poison that people put on them. Some people swear by it. I've never gone near it. I don't know if it's really that good because it gives people a bit of a trauma. It was used by the native people for hunting and to make sure that they could clue into their prey and hunt the animal that they were needing to eat. So yeah, there's many opinions about it, but I'm a bit weary of the frog poison as well. So it's all with go do your homework. That's all I want to say. Do your homework.
Have you ever had experiences with UFOs?
Yes, yes, but it was more around my 20 years. My years 20. I also was taken at the age of 7 a few times. I called them the pirates because they would paralyze me, and then I would come back in my body, and then I would be very, very angry. So fortunately, that didn't go on too much. And then when I was 20, 22, I was in Australia. I went to Australia when I was 21 and living with my first husband. And I ended up having a lot of strange experiences there with UFOs. I saw them several times, like they were watching us, and they would move around on a hillside near my house, and I could see them in the night. Once the whole car was taken, me and my husband, we had missing time of about an hour and a half, something like that. I was driving back from a friend's place where we had some time, social time, and I was feeling pretty normal. It was dark, it got really misty, and then I ended up seeing a landmark that said that I was on a certain road. And then I realized I wasn't on that road. And then 1.5 hours later, I was coming out of another road. And I thought, how did I get on this road? And it was like I saw kind of a little person waving us goodbye.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that transition from a certain time period to all of a sudden you come back? Like, are you just driving down a road and then you've kind of like, in a blink of an eye, you're driving in a different direction in a state of confusion, or what happens?
Yeah, I was really confused, and I couldn't work it out, and the time was different. Like there was quite a difference in time. Like I was about 9 o'clock when I went past my landmark, which said that I was on road A, which was directly to my house. And then it was after 10 o'clock when I suddenly exited from road B, where I had not turned into. I was 100% sure I didn't turn into that road, but that's where I turned out. And then I had to kind of double back to go back to my house.
At that moment, are you saying to yourself, what happened? Why am I on the wrong road?
Yes, I couldn't work it out. It was really weird. But I had several experiences during that time, and also sometimes we had dreams that I had several dreams that I was in a circular vehicle or circular place, looking down, and my husband was down on the table in the middle, and they were doing things to him. And then later on, he was making drawings of it too. He had also some memories, but later on he denied all those memories. But he told me that he had, at the time, he said that he had seen that, and he made a drawing of it, and I could see that he had also seen it.
Do you feel like your purpose in life was facilitating ayahuasca, bring the souls from the vortex, combination, or something even different?
I think I'm here to help with the shift in consciousness, and that is all part of it. Like the Lemurian thing, it had old sorceries, it had old troubles. It was like, it's like when you're driving a car with the handbrake on, it's not working very well. So it was like I had to take the handbrake off the car, and that had to do with what happened in Lemuria when they were trapped. It was like a bad thing, and it had to be cleared up because it was a sort of a communal trauma. It was a trauma in the consciousness of humanity when these big civilizations came to an end, Lemuria as well as Atlantis, and that trauma was to be cleaned so that people could go forward. Because, well, I feel that the Masons or people that like that, I'm not saying they're all bad because I don't think so, but that there was a sort of a culture of doing certain sacrifices for the devil, and that actually trapped these people into cycles of reincarnation and of it was like a sorcery that was put on it for the sake of the devil. The sorcery is very negative, so that's what I came to help clear, so that people could move forward. And the ayahuasca has the same effect. It actually helps to clear out all traumas. So it's all to do with clearing out all traumas. That's what I would boil it down to. And so I'm actually like the midwife saying, you're doing great, keep going, keep pushing.
Do you feel like we're in the ascension? And if so, when do you think it will be, finished?
Yeah, it's a big process. Like if we think of eons, like it's a huge clock, that the whole universe is sort of ticking through, and we're going into new levels of consciousness. So it's actually going to change our whole reality. So now, what is going to happen, we don't really know for sure, even though they say they have all these time travel things and the Project Looking Glass and all that, and that doesn't sound too good. But I have a really positive feeling about the future. I think that humanity is meant to go to the light. We're all meant to come to a better place eventually, and sometimes that goes through the path of suffering, so that we can make conscious decisions about where we want to put our attention, our focus. And that's up to each one individually. You can't help everyone change their life if they don't really fully change it themselves, no? I think you can remind them, but they have to also do it themselves. So that's why I always feel it's really important that people ask for these things themselves. They go looking for it. You can offer them the information, and they'll feel attracted to it, and then they have to do something about it for themselves, like change their attitude, stop saying to themselves the whole time that they don't serve for any good, or that they never can succeed, or something like that. So these are sorceries that we have to break free from.
Now, you wrote up your Lemurian experience in a book, right?
Yes.
What's the title of it?
It's called the Marine Vortex. I'll show you the book again. Yeah, the Marine Vortex.
And if people want to find out more about it, do they see it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. It's in 2 parts because I really struggled with the logistics of putting it online. I only learned about computers when I was 45, so I'm still, struggling with that. But I managed to do that in 2 parts. It's not a very big book, and you really have to get the second part to hear what is going to result, that they all get set free. And then otherwise, I'm on Facebook under my name, normal name, and I have people can contact me via Messenger. That I think is a good way, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. Well, before we finish up, can you give us one last positive message?
I think that this world is all part of imagination, so it's up to us to imagine good things, and to have faith in good things, and not be afraid of bad things happening. Because it's like when you have fear, it's like my worst fears became real, and that's because we stick our mind on these fears and we go over it and over it, and that's how we manifest it. So it's up to us now, especially at this time where the world is now, it may look dark, but it's up to us very much to remember imagining good things happening, and be very grateful for the friendships we do have, and honor the friendships we do have, and be grateful for the food we do have, even if it's not maybe, caviar every day. Just to be grateful for the little things, because all those little things add up to a wonderful feeling of gratitude and happiness in your life.
Claire, thank you for that message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. God bless.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.